Hello, everyone. Welcome to the West Coast Business Show. I'm one of your hosts, Jerrod Downey. I'm joined by William Donnellan. How's it going, William?
Good, Jerrod. How are you?
Good. We've got Ed Lingel on the show. I've got to make sure because he just bought a new company, Dormel Containers and Daequip. So he is the CEO of both those companies. Before we jump into, we're going to have Ed obviously come in a second here. But before we jump into it, we want to give a shout out to the pubs that you own and are sponsoring the show. So let's start with that and then let's bring it in.
Okay, proud to say since our last show, we opened the Copper Beach in Britannia up beside the Mine Museum. So anybody that's up that way, please pop in and say hi. We also have Smith's in Gastown, as you know, at Donnellan's on Granville Street, Shamrock Bar and Grill down in English Bay, Heinz in Kitsilano, and The Raven in Deep Cove.
Nice. And we should also give a shout out to, we're at Sugar Ray's here. Bob has been kind enough to let us film in here. He'll be next doing an episode here with us shortly. So we've got two, there's the Kitsilano location and the New West location. If you want to check out Sugar Ray's, it's where I train. Not as much as I should though. Ed, welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Thanks, Jerrod. Glad to be here.
We've done a couple, over the years, we've done a couple episodes. We're kind of go in the same circles in a way. So we met a few years ago. How you been?
Oh, it's been great. Lots going on, and just completed an acquisition of another company. So just moved our existing Daequip location from Port Kells to Abbotsford, and we expanded our capacity space by about 4 times. So
wow.
Yeah, it's been an exciting summer.
We got to do an episode out there coming here. You gentlemen, you just met today, right? Have you guys met before?
No, just today.
Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to you, William. You can get to your genuine questions because you haven't met. So,
Ed, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on. I think the first question is, tell me a bit about your business. Love to hear your story.
Yeah, well, it's a good story. I worked for Fitting Tractor for many years, and there was a salesman there. And this company that I used to do a lot of business with, they were one of our suppliers. I always kind of just poked them in the ear and said, hey, if you ever want to sell the company, I'd be interested. And never really thought that it would go anywhere. But I was trudging through the trenches, selling to the mines and the highway construction projects and in the interior. And then one day, the owner called me up and said, hey, if you're really serious, I'm going to sell the company. And well, I was sitting on the couch and I looked at my wife and I said, we're going to Vancouver Monday. We're buying a bucket company. So that was back in 2015. And it's been a roller coaster ride since then. We've been fortunate enough to have a pretty good upswing in business from 2015 to 2020. It was really good. And then of course, during the pandemic, there was some challenges, but we've overcome those challenges. And I took on a partner, Steve Tudhope, back in 2018, and between the two of us, we've grown the company now to just over 60 employees, and we've just added Dormel Containers on September 1st. With the move into the big new location, we had a lot of extra capacity, so we wanted to be able to fill the building up with manufacturing, but also a lot more overhead and expenses. So it's been a fun year.
Very good. You're in the Fraser Valley, right?
Yeah, we're in the Fraser Valley, and we with Daequip, we basically ship North America wide. Our primary customer base is Western Canada, the Pacific Northwest, and down into California. But we've shipped as far as New York and Florida, down into Texas, and just as of late, we've been shipping a fair amount of mining stuff into Ontario, Northern Ontario, which has been nice. With Dormel Containers, it's all new to us, but our primary customer base is basically Southern BC and the Pacific Northwest. The containers are quite large, so the shipping becomes your main challenge point. That at some point it's not feasible to ship beyond a certain point. Our plan is to focus on that company and try to grow it like we've done with Daequip, and really the diversification of the two industries for us is going to help keep a steady flow of work through the shop and revenue through the business.
I want to. We're going to obviously cover some topics here, but you've said two things to me since when we've talked that have actually stuck with me. I have a bad memory, so they must have been profound. No, The first thing you said is when the first interview you did with us, you said you wished you had gone into business sooner. And the second thing Ed said to me is you should buy into Vancouver because it just gets harder and harder to get into the market. So like 6 months later, I ended up buying a place because of that. So which was a good time. The market dropped a little bit and it was good timing. So thank you for that. But I wanted to circle back to that because it'll be a bit different audience, a lot of people that didn't see that first interview. And I thought that was an interesting thing that you said. You wished you had started earlier in your career in business. And why it stuck out to me is because that was around a time when I was sort of doubting if I'd started too early, because I was making so many mistakes. But now I'm glad I did. And that sort of actually was an encouragement to me. What do you think the advantages and disadvantages are of the choice you made to start later on?
Well, I started a family young. My wife and I are high school sweethearts. We came out of high school, and I was working in a small family business, which is where I learned my work ethic from my dad. It was, basically work hard and, get rewards for it. And the harder you work, the more you'll get rewarded. But over time, I got the job offer to move to Vancouver, or the Lower Mainland, I guess. We called it Vancouver, coming from Summerland. Anything west of Chilliwack was the big city, right? But, I got into sales working for CWS, and then, they sold and I went to Finning, but got into, what we call, the golden handcuffs or the velvet handcuffs. We had a good job, got paid a decent salary and able to, basically give the family what you wanted. My kids were in sports, and we got to do a holiday every year, and pay our mortgage payment. It was the Canadian dream. We had a house, and we were able to provide for our family. So myself, I was always entrepreneurial, so I was always looking for that opportunity. And there was a few that came up over the years, but I never wanted to take off those handcuffs because it was comfort. I knew I was getting a steady paycheck. I knew I could provide for my family. So I was always scared to take the leap. And
they were good opportunities that you passed on?
There's a couple that I really regret. Yeah. And actually Daequip was one of them. I had the original opportunity to buy Daequip in 2007 and partner with the existing owner. And, I was making decent money, and I just, I was scared. I didn't want to go into the unknown. I didn't want to spend the money to invest. And, I think that's what I kind of told you in the first interview. Yeah. I looked back, 10 years later going, boy, I wish I would have done earlier. And you never know.
Right.
Part of being at Finning and, working in different industries and being exposed to the customer base and the mentors. I was fortunate enough to have many mentors over my career, but you learn a lot along the way. And, so it all adds to your journey, right? But I've got a lot of young kids that I've coached hockey over the years. I coached hockey for, 10, 11 years and got to meet a lot of young, good kids. And those young kids are now turning into young entrepreneurs. And I always get a real smile. I get a lot of phone calls from these 25, 30-year-olds and wanting advice and, hey, I love what you're doing. Can you help me? I'm looking at this and looking at that. And my advice is the same to all of them. Don't be scared, have confidence in yourself, and you're going to make mistakes. Just like you said, you make some mistakes, you start to get that self-doubt, and probably your biggest enemy and your biggest advocate is yourself. You have to look in the mirror and go, I can do it. And, got to have that confidence in yourself. When that little monkey on your shoulder says you can't do it, and, you should just give it all up and go to work for somebody else and get that steady paycheck. You got to talk him off the ledge and go, no, I can do this, and keep going. It doesn't work for everybody. Obviously, we see that in the industries, but, the confidence thing and being able to get over that first 2-3 years.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part of any business, right? And the other thing I learned over my career, and it was from mentors, and it was from being exposed to successful contractors and mining companies and construction companies is, if you're going to get into business, if you can find a business that's established to either buy into or buy, you hit the road running with cash flow and revenue.
Gives you a couple years to sort things out.
Well, like when I bought Daequip, I went 2 years without a paycheck, but I had money to pay for the bank loans, and
right.
There was enough there to keep us going. Where startups are tough, these young guys that are trying to start up new businesses, you get a contract for 6 months or a year, everything's great, but if you're not on the ball and that contract comes to an end, and you haven't been preparing for it, or you haven't been looking for more work, And that's, I think, the biggest takedown of a lot of small companies is they're not looking towards tomorrow. They're focused on today.
Yeah.
So Ed, it's obvious you've been a leader for a long time, and with your coaching those hockey teams, what I guess pushed you to eventually become an entrepreneur and business owner?
I think it was always in my blood. Like I said, I was involved right out of high school in my family's precast company, and it was a small company. It was my dad and myself, and we had one other guy, and my mom did the book, so we were a very small company. But I always just loved the grit and grind of basically being a business owner, and I learned a lot from my dad. Really, it was all about hard work and just work hard and do what you need to do to get it done. And that was back in the '90s, where a lot of things were different, but the want was always there, and I had some great jobs over the years. I had some really good bosses and mentors, but there was always something in the back of my mind going like, if you want to get to the next step, if you want to be better for yourself, it's like, take the leap and go into entrepreneurship. And what I found, when this opportunity came along, and I looked at it long and hard, and I was 43 years old, and I'm like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And that's where, after about 3 or 4 years, where things were going well, when we had our first interview, where I said, in my mind, I wish I would have done it way sooner.
Yeah.
And specifically with Daequip, I had the opportunity way sooner, like 8 years sooner. And things might have been different. The 08-09 global epidemic happened, the meltdown.
That's when I lost my first company.
Yeah. And a lot of people did. And maybe I wouldn't have survived, like it's who knows, like everything happens for a reason. So, I've just been fortunate that, when we bought the company, things maintained a steady level, and we grew slowly from 15 to 20. We were 10%, 15% year over year. We managed to take a lot of market share and, kind of squeeze our way into the industry and pick up a lot of business. And now we're just, we're focused on, sustainable growth and expanding our marketplace.
I'm curious, but you mentioned your father, the hard work. It sounds about the same as I was raised. So I was the youngest of 9 kids. So my father is from I'm born into a different generation, in effect, because he's from a very old school way of doing, and so that's what I grew up with. So even when I was going to high school, there was an obvious that like I had older parents. I just had a different upbringing, and what I had to learn, though, is because he was he literally would say, I just do what I do. I would hear that probably 50 times in a year. So when I went into business, especially the second time around, I had to sort of rework my brain, because I realized I can't just it's too competitive. I can't just work hard. I have to, take advice from people like William and you, and I just tried to start absorbing everything I could. Even today, I study accounting every morning, or at least 4 or 5 times a week. Was there ever that sort of pivot for you where you went, okay, this is, I grew up in the mom and pop, grit, hard work, but now, you just did an acquisition, you've got Daequip, you got a great big building out in the interior, in the Fraser. Did you sort of have to pivot and kind of?
I was fortunate, and I still find myself being fortunate with my career, both with CWS and Finning. And, CWS is a smaller family-owned business, but about 100 employees. And I learned a lot there just about the manufacturing process. And I was young in my career at that point. I never thought I'd own, an attachment manufacturing company, but I learned things. And at Finning, the corporation, like just working for a large corporation, we talked about one of your customers, and, I'm sure you've picked up a lot just, from being a superintendent at those sites and talking with the owners. And like I said, my probably biggest advantage that I have, I say, is over the 13 years I worked at Finning, I got to meet a lot of very successful entrepreneurs, and just sitting and listening to them and tell their story. Pretty much every entrepreneur loves to tell their story, because we want other people to succeed, and you want to share your knowledge. And I was fortunate enough to get a lot of shared knowledge, and that's probably what I would say is the biggest attribute to my success is all my former and current mentors. To
underpin the hard work, still underpinning it, but sort of tacking on as you go.
Well, I used to be that, I'll just get it done myself.
Yeah.
And honestly, like with this big move we just did, and it was a big move. We moved 60 truckloads of material from our shop in Port Kells. We had a small little half-acre yard and a 12,000 square foot building, and now we got a 3.5 acre yard with a 40,000 square foot building. So I took that one on, head on. I had a lot of help from my people, but at the end of the day, I was the one organizing everything and running forklifts. Like I said, I've been working 7 days a week for the last 4 months, but I've been enjoying it. Like it's, I'm running the forklift, I'm out in the yard, and I'm probably doing too much because I should be leaving more for my guys to do. But at the same time, they need some help because we're trying to maintain the flow of manufacturing and, get product out the door for our customers. So trying to have as little disruption to manufacturing as possible. But that old, I can do it myself, and if I don't do it myself, it's not going to get done right. You have to kind of throw that away if you want to succeed, because you have to empower your people and trust your people to do the job that you've hired them to do. And you see it on TV shows. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but you just have to know how to lead them and give them the power to do what they can do best.
Yeah, thank goodness you don't have to be. Well, you should jump in on this. You've had a growing company, and I'm sure you have lots of thoughts on.
Yeah, I find this very interesting, and I've been self-employed since I was 19 years of age. So I think what you did was very smart. You might spend 20 years working with other businesses and as you said, learning from, entrepreneurs and business owners, and then to go and become an owner yourself. I think that's very wise, and I can imagine by doing that, you would have avoided a lot of the pain, I suppose, and the mistakes that I made anyway, personally, in my early 20s and my 20s and 30s, because mistakes cost money, and the more you learn, and you can't teach experience, I believe.
You can't.
I think it just, you learn it, and the tough experiences, you learn more from them, in my opinion, than you do the easy ones. The easy ones just go by, and that was fine, that was easy. But when something hurts, you don't forget it. So I guess in all of that, there was probably still some shocks to the system after transitioning into an owner. Any of those that you can?
Oh, there was lots.
Any stories?
There's lots of shocks to the system, especially working for a big company. I wasn't exposed to, day-to-day handling of employees and employee problems, customer problems. I was in my little area of expertise and dealing with customers mostly, and I had to deal with a lot of, issues, with whether it's breakdowns of equipment or customers not happy with bills, whatever. But I was never really exposed to a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, as far as employees working and having issues with other employees in shops and stuff. So we had a lot of growing pains that way, and I had to learn a lot. That's probably the biggest challenge I had, was just learning how to manage people, especially on a bigger scale. As we grow, you get a lot of different personalities come together, and it took a while. I would say probably a good 2, 3, 4 years. But I go back to I was so lucky to have so many good mentors. And you hit it right on the head. Like the young guys that start off in business, you go through a lot of challenges, a lot of mistakes, and mistakes cost money. And like you say, the biggest mistakes that cost you money, you don't forget. You learn from them. So one of the biggest things I learned, and we got guys in the shop, and we got overhead cranes and forklifts, and safety is number one priority. We don't want anybody to get hurt ever. And we're fortunate we've not had any big lost time injuries. We've had a couple of small incidents at the shop, and nicks and bruises, and we try to make sure everybody learns from them. But the biggest part of that is promoting that in the shop, that you don't have to just do it. You're getting paid here to do your job, and if it's not safe, I don't expect you to do it, because I wouldn't do it. I don't want those expensive mistakes, and whether it's through financial or personal health issues, anything to that effect. I don't want somebody hurt. So with learning a lot of that through a bigger corporation, I was able to avoid some of the mistakes that young entrepreneurs do, and just get it done, just do it, at all costs. We have to finish this job.
Right.
I've been able to avoid those, I would call not necessarily mistakes, but shortcomings of young entrepreneurs that, they think they have to finish the job at all cost to get paid. And a lot of times, they can cost them, whether it's a safety incident or a financial incident, it can cost them their life or their business.
Or underbid to get paid. We were talking about that off camera, doing, you try to just get the work and then you pay for it down. 6 months later, you're going, damn it.
And we see that often, during these peaks where there's more business than there is people to do it. And, people start underbidding and, or they get over leveraged, and that's probably, I think, the biggest mistake a lot of entrepreneurs do. They think that it's never going to stop. And, we've seen that many times in the industry. And, so one of the things we do, like we take some risks, but we do very calculated risks. And just like this acquisition, it's a very calculated risk. We took on a lot of debt to do it, but we call it good debt. It's very calculated. We went through the numbers, probably for the better part of 2 years, and to make sure that we could sustain it, and it's going to be good.
I want to talk more about the acquisition, but I wanted to go back to something you said about, you're doing this big move, jumping on forklifts and that, and you just put on a game. How did that go? The Canadian National Championships, right?
Yeah, that was
in
incredible.
Burnaby?
Yeah, the first time ever having it here in BC. A couple of years ago, we had it in Toronto. So we had almost 100 games in 2 days.
Wow.
I'd say well over 1,000 players. And,
were you playing?
Probably about 45 teams. Yes.
Oh, you were playing?
I played, yeah.
Maybe just what's the game?
So we were playing camogie and hurling and football. So they're Ireland's national sports.
Okay.
And we had a tournament in Burnaby out at the sports complex over 2 days, a couple of weeks ago. It was a huge success.
Yeah. And you sent me a video. I have a little phone, so I couldn't see what it was, but you were directing someone. They were pulling something off a truck with a forklift and that.
Oh yeah, that was us just mobilizing and setting up.
Yeah. So you're on site getting all things organized.
Mobile pubs and stages and bleachers and all types of stuff.
I can tell you were a little stressed out a few days before, so I was like, I'll just leave him alone.
And a big shout out to Mike Hurley, our friend who was on our show.
Was he?
Mike is the mayor of Burnaby, as you know, and Mike kind of made that all possible. So it was a huge success. Yeah, great.
But you're out there getting everything organized and that, you're making that big move. Where do you, both of you, where do you find that balance? Because, if you're a corporation that has 20,000 employees and you're the CEO, okay, well, you can't be out there on a forklift. It's not possible. But, it's sort of that, that mid to large, that there's that sort of spot where you still kind of have to be involved, but you can't be too involved. How do you find the balance?
Yeah, and actually that was going to be one of my questions to Ed, where he said jump in and not being afraid to get your hands dirty. And I think that's important. We had a big concrete pour for a bridge we're doing out in the Deep Cove area last Friday for the Tsleil-Waututh Nations and Conwest Contracting. And I was there on site all day with my carpentry construction gear on and running the pump, and I think it's important to do that every now and again. I know we can't do it all day every day, but to do it every now and again to show your teams that you're not afraid to get stuck in, and you wouldn't do anything that you wouldn't ask them to do, and that you're invested, you're still hands on, and you're not afraid to get your hands dirty. I think people like to see that type of leadership in this world, nowadays. Of course, it's not possible to have your tool belt on all day, every day. I remember working up in the Yukon in, I think it was 2012, and Jack Bray from IRL Group kind of gave me the nudge and said, William, you got to leave down the tool belt. And that was one of the best bits of advice I ever got. And he explained to me why. He said, you're here hanging this door and, working your ass off. And he said, you got a lot of guys around the site, and some of them are on their phone, and he said this is just an example of what's going to happen, and this is going to happen on a much larger level if you don't have your finger on the pulse on all your projects. And we always have 15 or 20 projects on the go at one time, and he said you got to manage them, and you got to leave down your tools and be involved. And that was one of the best bits of advice I ever got. But I do think it's still important to get stuck in when you have to.
Yeah, I would agree. That's, it goes back to what I was saying, like, the mentorship that I got, it's, empower the people that you have to do their jobs. And probably that's one of the biggest things, that you said, and that I look at too, is, when can you do the things that you need to do, but when is this, the right opportunity to just make sure that you're guiding your people to do what needs to be done. I'm the first one. I don't know how to weld. I can't grab a welder and jump into the shop and start welding. But I do get back there, and if things are really busy, I'll jump on a forklift and load a truck. Or during this move, I've took it upon myself to organize the yard and really try to keep things flowing. And I go back to our production. We didn't wanted to disrupt production as little as possible, but. The empowering the people is the biggest thing, and like I said, I picked that up through fitting, and it's a staple to successful business. Just like when he told you to take the tool belt off, now it's 2012, you said.
Yeah.
So you're starting, you're just starting to grow, but you feel you have to be a part of it, so the guys respect you.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you find yourself, you're focused on the task at hand as opposed to the big picture. And we kind of went through the same thing. I bought Daequip in 2015. I was hands-on. I was basically running the office, doing the quoting, ordering materials, and had a couple other key guys that were helping at the time. But I was working 14, 15 hours a day for the first couple of years. And it got to the point where, okay, now I can afford to hire people. And, so where do I put myself and let these people take over so I can look after more managing the company, making sure there's money in the bank, making sure there's bills getting paid, and, discussing with suppliers, and really kind of taking a step back and setting the company up for success, where you're managing the company as opposed to managing each job. And that's the hardest part too, as an entrepreneur, as you're coming up from a small company to a big company too.
Yeah, it's a strange pivot you have to make.
It really is, because you have to step back, and it costs money, especially up front.
Yeah.
You got to hire people to do what you were doing, or look after things that you would have looked after, because really, as you grow, you got to take a different focus and focus on the health of the company, as opposed to specific jobs or specific sites or specific projects.
And growth takes thinking time. Like you have to actually map out what you're doing. You have to write notes. You have to then rewrite it. You have to talk to people. But nothing's happening in that period of time. And it takes a lot of time when you start all of a sudden scaling up. Right. Like you're saying, while you're doing that, now you're maybe hiring 2 or 3 people to manage this side of things while
and there's training involved when you're hiring people, but I'm sure William can attest to this. Like, my year's been crazy. My daughter got married in February. We had a grandson in May. We took possession of our building in June. So we moved all between June and July, all during the same time. We were working on trying to complete this acquisition, and then financing and bank requirements and legal requirements, and and then taking over in the middle of August, and actually the transaction date of September. Like, it's been crazy. And I've got home some nights, and my wife too, she's really putting her time in, and shout out to Deb for that. But we get home and we're mentally exhausted, and I know what that's like after a long couple of weeks or a long couple of months. Like, to the point where you feel like you've been working out for 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You're not losing the weight because you're not actually working out, but your mind is just so tired. Like, you can't get that mental break.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to getting all of this behind us. We're still got a good 45 days left with this the acquisition transition, because now we're going to be moving Dormel containers to Abbotsford to be completely integrated with the Daequip building, so we'll have everything under one roof, and by November 1st we'll have 100% of both operations under one facility.
That reminds me of years ago, one of my business coaches told me that I needed to hire a VP of construction, and I needed to hire an executive assistant, and I was thinking, how much are those salaries going to cost me? And I can't do that right now. And I said, when do I need to do this, or how much time do I have to do this? And he said, you should have done it 6 months ago. So he said, I need you to do it now. And that's going to be one of your action items before we have our next meeting. And I was thinking, wow. So I done it. And honestly, it was one of the best things I ever done. And he said, just, having that trust, and I do believe trust and relationships are 2 of the most important things in business, and just giving that trust to somebody else, and supporting them. And you often hear people saying that, a task done 80%, is better than a task not done at all. And you can always come in at the end and support and help wherever it's needed. But you can't do everything yourself. And I used to be of that mindset where if I don't do it, it won't be done, and it won't be done right. And you have to let that go, and you have to trust in your people and empower your people. Yeah. And when you do that and you have the right people in place, your business will grow. And I always say, when we hire somebody, and if there's any issues or if it doesn't work out, I always say we have to take full responsibility. I say absolute responsibility, because if that's happening, it's for one of two reasons, in my opinion. Number one, we didn't hire the right person, so that's our fault. Or number two, we didn't provide the right training. And if we hired the wrong person and we're going to keep them, now we have to give them the right training and the right support to do their job. Yeah. And that really helps too. And once your team and your managers kind of see that mentality, I think it really helps, because they begin to support each other, more than you typically see, I think.
Well, and that goes right to, having team building functions and ensuring that your team is working together, because that's who you're relying on, right? And we're trying to do more of that, and probably don't do enough of it. But we've got a pretty good management group, and they all get along really well. And that's going to be one of my focuses over the next 12, 18, 24 months, is really ensuring that have some more team building events to keep those guys going, because they are the ones that get the day-to-day stuff done. Yeah. And they rely on us to keep the business healthy and bring the work in and make sure that we're doing the right things to.
You're touching on a good point. It's actually something we just made an adjustment in our company for, because my business partner he's the real go-getter. I'm trying to plan things out, and he sort of maps out. He handles the finance side, so he just tells me all of what we can and can't do a lot of times. And just, he's got a brilliant mind. But part of that sort of that high functioning mind is that he'll. What was happening is I'd phone him and I'd say, hey, who do I talk to get this information? And he kept having the answer. And I went, okay, you're doing too much stuff. There's no way you should know all this. So we kind of looked at sort of how he was working. And I'm pretty hands off with the company in the sense that people do their jobs, but he was sort of helping everybody out. And what was happening is there was a lot of errors happening, because of course he's busy. So he was ending up sort of missing, not missing, but it was, people were kind of making errors because it was like, who's doing what, or just not kind of taking full ownership. So we pivoted. And now what happens is the managers report every week. We have a management meeting. They give us it's a written report. So we know exactly what's happening, what happened last week, what's happening this week, what they're up to. And then that's basically it. There's some interaction with them, but they're basically, then they're off for the week. And then next week we get to the next report. The mistakes are dropping down. The productivity is up. He's not near as stressed. It's a major fix. And it's a little bit of a nitpick, but there's also that fine line. If you start jumping on the forklift too much or start picking up the belt, you kind of take that power away from people, and you think you're helping, but you're actually kind of saying, just step aside here. I'll finish this for you.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I had one of my managers come up to me and tell me that exact thing. Like, hey, you think you're helping, but you're actually kind of disrupting some stuff on the floor. And I'm kind of, I'm smart enough to take constructive criticism. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, well, how am I doing that? And then you kind of look back and go, yeah, you know what? Because my operations manager might have already given some, instructions to a guy, and then I go out and I take the forklift and I'm doing my thing, and that guy's kind of. Oh, I was supposed to do that, and like that was.
They had a plan. Yeah,
that was on my.
And then all of a sudden,
on my watch to do after lunch.
Yeah. Sometimes you gotta just manage the numbers and not the process.
Yeah, and that 80% thing is actually a really good. I think it's a really good note for people.
I actually like that. I've never heard that. So, I learned something today. So thank you.
Yeah,
right. Okay with that. What we should talk about the acquisition, because that's an interesting. So you went out looking for a company to buy?
Well, it's another great story. I think I told you back on it was one of our first talks. I had just purchased that property in the building out in Abbotsford for our future growth, and there was a company in there. building and manufacturing roll-off bins and containers and whatnot. And the owner was elderly, and the guy I bought the building from made an introduction, and we kind of talked and said, like, hey, if you want to sell that business, I'd really be interested in buying it, and because it would have given us early access. So they had a lease agreement to stay in the building until 2026. And I bought it in 2019. So it was a 6-7 year plan before I would actually get into, get Daequip in there. So actually the owner was intrigued. He said, yeah, I'm mid 70s. I'm absolutely interested in selling the company. So we went down the road of, trying to buy the business. And unfortunately, the owner just, he had some very specific demands in contracts, and we could just never put a deal together. We actually had, on 3 different occasions, we had a handshake deal with him. And by the time we got the paperwork to the lawyers, there was things added in there that we just couldn't agree to. So it never happened. The company ended up selling, I guess, last May to some new people, and of course they reached out to us about the lease and wanted to know what was going on, and they wanted to know if they could stay longer. And I actually I said, no, you can't have an extension, and if anything, I would love it if you guys could leave earlier. You're going to have to move the business anyway, so there's no better time than now. So we structured a deal, and I paid him out a little bit of early severance, or not early severance, but early lease cancellation, and tried to make it worth their while to move. And so that was last June, and I want to say it was right around Christmas, or earlier this year, maybe January. I got a phone call out of the blue from the owner of IRL Containers, and great guy, Gary Seabrook, and he said, hey, I heard you're trying to buy our competitor, and you couldn't put a deal together. They sold to somebody else. And I'm like, yeah. Like, where did you hear this? He goes, a friend of a friend. And that's a whole nother story in itself. But he said, my partner and I are at retirement age, and we're interested in selling the company. Would you want to buy us out? Well, as you can imagine, from 2019 to 2023, I had done a lot of research on the bin business, and there was a lot of really good synergies with what Daequip is, its manufacturing process, and I'd already done, pretty much all the due diligence I could on the industry, and I was intrigued. So we met for a coffee, and we kind of made an agreement to carry it forward, and it took a while to get some financial statements, and I would say probably about March, April of that year, we were going back and forth, and just the interest was there, but how negotiations go, it takes a while, and it was at the end of June that we were actually able to put a deal together. And if there was one thing I've learned, with my previous tries to buy the previous company, like, a deal's not done until it's done, especially in the M&A world, right? A lot of M&A deals fall apart at the last minute, and we were exposed to that firsthand. So of course you can't talk about it to anybody. So my business partner and I are really trying to manage all that, and of course we're doing that all during the move and everything else that was going on. So end of June we signed an agreement, and here we are today. So it's great now. They're Gary and Kevin. They've still got another business in the location. It's Ladder Crab Traps, and so they're going to maintain running that out of there with a smaller crew. And we're moving the entire operation over here to Abbotsford. For us, what we really liked about it was not just the synergies in the manufacturing process, but it really diversifies our business model.
Your customer base and
it diversifies, into the waste and recycling. So, with the manufacturing of heavy attachments, we're into construction and mining and highways maintenance, oil and gas, fields. This pivots us right into waste and recycling and demolition, and so it really gives us some good exposure to a lot of the same clients, but in a different light. Most of our clients now are big dealerships or large contractors, where this is large independent contractors and small contractors. So a lot of them are using Daequip products with some of their equipment, or they're exposed to them, and so now we're exposed to those clients, direct with bins and roll-off. So we're excited about it.
I wanted to ask about both of you a question again, because something you touched on was the first deal. The first deal didn't go through, and going back to what we were talking about, spending time on, you got to think and plan stuff out. I'm sure both of you have experienced that temptation that you've already put on the time. Oh, it's just one little change they've made. And was there any temptation to, just because so much time had put into it, or when he made those changes, it's like, no, the deal's not going. But you know what I'm talking about? It's just sort of that being willing to let the deal pass
rather than forcing it over the line,
because you've already put in so much time into it. I'd like both your thoughts on. I'm just picking your brains so I make better decisions now.
I was fortunate enough because I wanted to complete the deal. You know, it's you're hungry. You've done everything, and you're ready to just, you know, like jump in head first. And thankfully, I had a good law firm that was representing me, and they're really the ones that just said, you just can't take these liabilities and this risk on. Like, you know, we don't know what's behind the curtain, and there may be nothing, but you just can't take that risk when they try to put something into a contract that exposes you, because you're risking everything else, right? And one of the big things, you know, if you've got nothing to lose, then taking on some risk is, you know, it doesn't matter. But when you got, you know, a company with 30, 40, 50 employees and you're expanding and you've got everything to lose, at that point, you got to be smart about what risks you take. And, you know, I kind of mentioned that earlier, like, you know, we'll take on, you know, risk, but it's good risk. It's good debt, and it's calculated, you know, so we've done a lot of due diligence and, you know, just research in the industries and whatnot. So you really have to make sure you know what you're doing. And thank God for my legal team, because I would have probably jumped in both feet and bypassed that. And then even now I'm seeing some things like, you know, with the other company and some of the challenges they're having, and, you know, that would have been, you know, exposed to it. So we're happy that we did what we did.
It's an important thing.
It's funny that you asked that question. I just put an offer on a business last week.
Congratulations.
And didn't get accepted.
Might be a congratulations still.
But,
it's hard to say.
But very similar story, and I was very excited about it, and I was thinking, you know, this is a winner. Put in the offer. There was other offers, and it was this day last week on Sunday. I met the landlords there, and we were kind of negotiating a little bit, and they said, well, these are the other offers that I have, you know. So they said, we like you, you're very experienced, you're local, the others are not. So I'm just kind of being open and honest with you. This is what we're dealing with, and if you can match these. And I said, I'm not really comfortable matching these, but this is my offer, you know. And then we probably talked for an hour, and we went away about our business, and they connected with me a couple of days later and said, you know, we're not going to accept this offer. And I said, well, then, you know, let's negotiate, or why don't you send me a counter? And they said, that's not the way we do business. So I said, I totally respect that, and I wish you all the best, you know. But I can assure you that if that was 10 years ago, I would have forced that deal over the line, because good location, I was very excited about it, and I probably would have jumped in, you know. But I'm a big believer now that my mum used to, or does always say, what's for you won't pass you, you know. And I believe in that. I believe in faith. And I just said, the very best of luck to you and your new tenant, and I hope it goes well. Yeah. And if it doesn't, you have my number. And I felt good about that.
Your mum's saying is probably one of the best things, and that's you know, I've heard the same saying, and my dad and my grandpa were kind of the same thing. If it's meant to be, it'll happen. And at the end of the day, like, you know, when you try to force something, there's always something that comes up in the background that, you know, oh geez, I wasn't aware of that. You know, maybe you overpay, maybe there was something else that, and the other one is there might be a better opportunity right down the road that's right. Should you have taken that? Yeah, it's not there. And I honestly believe like where we are today with the acquisition of Dormel, like it's a much better fit for us. It was, you know, great team over there, and you know, great product and a great customer base, and so for us, it's actually a better fit.
It sort of sharpened you and prepared you for the good deal that came along.
Well, fortunately enough, you know, both deals were the exact same industry, and I'm assuming yours, by the sounds of it, was probably another pub, so it's in the same industry, so you really know what you're looking for, and so you're lucky that it's you know everything there is to know, or as much as you need to know about the business before you make a decision, right? And so I was lucky enough that this was, you know, it was a competitor, and I had done so much background over the last couple, 2-3 years. It didn't take me much to, figure out that, hey, this is a good deal. And it was a good deal for both of us, for the seller and for the buyer. So customers are going to be great, and they're going to benefit by it. And, our employees are going to benefit by it.
I just wanted to tack on one thing. In my experience, it's when there's when everything looks good and you're the excitement, we all had it, that excitement, you're ready to go. And there's just a little tiny thing you go, oh, that could happen, but that's probably not likely. It's just like, it's almost like a passing thought. And you go, that's the thing you should zero in on.
Yeah.
Because that little maybe not that's got to be explored. I think Munger, Buffett's partner Munger, he said, plan for the worst. Look at it in the worst case scenario. If it still works in the worst case scenarios. And we adopted that. And our mistakes just kind of went away because we went, could this happen?
Hope for the best and expect the worst.
Yeah.
If you go through, just life in general with those expectations, you will succeed at whatever you do, whether it's personal or business, because really you're preparing yourself for worst case scenario, but you're hoping for best case scenario every time, right?
Yeah. I love what Ed said. A mentor of mine told me that years ago as well. And what he said was, a better opportunity comes up every 40 days. Where he got the 40 days out of, I don't know, but I grabbed that and ran with it. And, I believe when you're younger, for me anyway, when I was younger, if I lost an opportunity like that, I would think, well, that's the end of the world.
You dwell on it.
Yeah. I would never let it go. But now, as you go through the years and you get more experience, it's easier to deal with those things, and you can manage them better.
That's exactly how I went through. I was disappointed 3 times trying to buy that other company, but I moved on every time. And, and then there was circumstances that kind of brought it back up in the plate and, went back to negotiations and, but I left every time, every single time that I got, disappointed that I was ready to sign the papers. I didn't get emotional about it. And I think that's probably the biggest advice that I try to give to people nowadays is don't let your emotions tie into business decisions, because as soon as you do that, you're setting yourself up.
That's why you have good lawyers. You're setting
yourself up for failure. But even without lawyers, if you make good decisions, don't second guess them. Just move on. Don't get emotional about things. And it goes right down to buying houses or cars. I've taught my kids, and my daughter, she was 7 or 8 years old, and we were in Mexico on the beach, and she wanted to buy this hammock for her room, the Mexican hammock on the beach. And I can't remember it. We were in Cabo, but he wanted like $40 US for it. And we had seen him in town for $25. But I said to my daughter, I said, first of all, there's more places to buy it. So go negotiate with him and see if you can get it for $25. And well, she was 8 years old and she was ruthless. She went in there and, she came back and she got it for $21. So she was so happy, right? But she walked twice, the guy would not come down, and she's like, no, and I'm sitting 50 feet away, and I'm watching this whole thing going like, oh, right on. But it was a life lesson, don't get emotionally attached. And if you're buying a car and so many people, they just focus on, this is the car I want, or this is the house I want. And they overpay. And then they have buyer's remorse. And once you sign a contract, a lot of times there's nothing you can do about it. So if you can take emotions out of the majority of your decisions, you'll often make the best decision for you or your family or for your business.
Yeah. And pause, hit the pause button. Don't jump right in. Sometimes the best thing to do is nothing at all, I find. Sometimes we're dealing with some HR issues, and somebody will send you a note and say, what am I going to do here? And I'll be like, let it sit for a day or two.
Let it sit, yeah.
2 hours time, that's all being resolved, so.
I'm still learning that one.
Yeah.
I'm like your partner. I'm high strung and a little ADD, I call it.
And,
my wife calls it the mousetrap. It's always spinning. So, I should probably, take some more consideration of the pausing part. Often I get, emotionally charged, and it's like, okay, I got to get this done. And
Yeah. Depends on what you're dealing with.
And in the right time, right place. It is like sometimes you've got time to blow the door down.
Oh, that's right.
You got to go. Yeah, and you got to go now.
And there's a fine line, between pausing and charging, right?
And being willing. Sometimes when you blow through the door, realizing, oops. All right, well, that shouldn't have done that, but here we are.
So one last question for you, Ed. How do you balance it all? You're a family man. You have a number of new businesses. How do you make it all work?
You go back to that ADD. Everything's going. The mind never stops. But it's having a phenomenal partner that backs me up and helps. My wife is just, she's instrumental to everything we do, and understanding, and she's there to help. It's having a good team, on the Daequip side, and we're building a new Dormel team, and we're really excited about the people we've hired, and it's learning the process and learning to trust people for their skills and take a step back. And that's what I've learned the most, I think, is just like, making sure you empower the people. And like I said, it was only just a couple of weeks ago, I had one of my employees come to me and say, hey, you're disrupting the flow by doing what you're doing. And I got to take a step back and go, okay, yeah, I get it. So every now and then you have to take that and go, yeah, I can still learn.
Yeah.
And I actually enjoy learning, just like, like you said a little bit earlier, it's if you can take something every day or every week and learn, and you'll keep going, and keeps your mind sharp, keeps you going. But keeping it all in check and balance, it's tough, especially when we're as busy as we are. We're trying to get to see our new grandson, and trying to spend family time with the kids, and we're just trying to spend some alone time, and just get out and do things. And we haven't had that time, but we're planning a little holiday in November, just to do a quick recharge, and then back at her, and
And congratulations on the new grandson.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're really excited about that.
She's showing a picture. He looks older than my daughter, he's like 4 months, and she's like 9.
Oh, and he's a strong little bear. Yeah. He was lifting his head day one. Like he come out and he was strong. Like he's going to be a tough little guy. We hope, and hopefully he'll take over the business or businesses one day. It's
yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Ed, thank you so much for coming in here and doing this. We've done it a few times, but it's great to have William to sort of add that dynamic. It's been awesome. So thank you.
No, thank you, and it's been a pleasure to meet you, William. And I wish you all the success in all your business as well.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to meet you. We always give our guests a little gift for coming on our show.
Oh wow!
Seeing as today we're at the legendary Sugar Ray's Boxing Club, and I thought nothing would be more fitting than some proper 12 from our Fighting Irishman Conor McGregor. So thank you very much.
There you go.
Hopefully the new president of Ireland.
Hopefully not.
Oh no idea. I just been maybe I got more to learn on that. I just saw it on TV.
Oh well, let's start another 20 minutes. Let's get into the politics side. Gentlemen, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for watching the show. We will see you on the next episode. And by the way, how awesome is the setup we're doing the episode in? Thank you everybody for watching. Make sure to subscribe. We'll see you on the next episode of the West Coast Business Show.